Hello, everyone. I don't know how many people we got here, but we got some, and that is what matters. This is going to be the second Dresden debriefing. The first was with Chase, and I have my fantastic guest, Sarah Reeds, where we can go in spoilers galore, and we do not need to pretend that Murphy is a one-note side character. And Sarah, I'm sure most people watching this know who you are, probably more than they know who I am, but you can introduce yourself for those who don't.
I'm Sarah, and I'm very happy to finally be able to actually talk about how I feel about Dresden. Because the last two streams I did, I had to pretend that or not pretend, but talk as if I had only read the first three books. And they are painfully different from the rest of the series. So it was a struggle, but now I'm excited to talk about everything.
Yes, we have quite a bit to talk about. And actually, you have a video that's like, I don't know if I should continue Dresden. I'm not sure. And so we, as the Dresden fandom, have the continual struggle to make people believe us. Because I've created the cycle of Dresden. Everyone goes through this where it's like, I'm not sure how I feel. And then later, you have to deal with other people being not sure if it actually improves. And you have to convince them. And it's frustrating because you yourself had to be convinced. So how would you, if you now in reverse, if someone posted a video with the same title as yours, like, I'm not sure if I should continue, how would you convince them? How would you describe the evolution of the series?
I would just yell. Yes. All the advice you need. It depends on why they don't like it, right? Like there are certain things about Dresden that are going to stay with the series as it continues. But if you don't like it because you feel like the characters are not well-rounded enough, or you feel like all the focus is on Harry because it's a first-person point of view, so we get to know him really well, but we don't really get to know anybody else really well, or if you're worried that it's going to be this series of individual cases and not coalesce into a more cohesive world, all of that will happen. If you look at details in like books 1 to 6, but why is this even here? This is not relevant to this book. Why do I need to know it? Well, you will need to know it at some point, and it will become something that you look back on. And you're like, that's so cool and clever. So I think that there's just a lot of stuff, a lot of groundwork that Jim Butcher was laying down in those early books. But they are his first books that he was writing. So he improves on many things. He's able to do a lot more as he spends more time with his characters. So I think that even if there's a few like stumbling points at the beginning, it will all be redeemed. I think that the action becomes much better as you go on. The books, the first ones I could read at a sedate pace. Like I could just kind of flip through them, enjoy them well enough. And then by the time I got to like book 8, I was like, this needs to be read as fast as possible. I had to stop doing the audio because it was too slow. I was like, no, I can read so much faster than this. I have to stop. I love you, James Marsters, but you're not reading quickly enough for me.
Yeah, I didn't have the skepticism thing because I actually read Alara before I read Dresden, and I loved Alara. It was one of my first like fantasy series. And so it started with just like, whatever, it's not as good as Alara, but like it's really fun and I'm having a good time. And it slowly, at some point, I was like, wait, is this better than Alara? I think it is.
Calculate.
Like, that seems wrong because I've had this like, for like 9 books now, I've been thinking like, this is clearly not as good as Alara, but it's really fun. And now I'm starting like, maybe it actually is as good. And then, I got to like Cold Days and I'm like, wait a second. And this might be better.
It's better.
And it's like, when did that happen? But it did. And we've got a lot of people. And I agree with you that it does depend on what the criticisms are. Like there are some people who will be like, it's probably not the series for you. Like Bookborn had a video and she only read book 1. And obviously I think if Bookborn read up to like book 10, she'd be like, okay, like I can clearly tell that book 10 is clearly a better book than book 1. But also I think the reasons she would have might still apply of it just stylistically not being something she would enjoy.
Right.
But if people are generally just like, there's a lot of people who are like, this seems like a fun idea, I just don't think it's that good. And if that's, I think it's like, trust us. But it's hard to get people to trust you because a lot of the time it's not true. A lot of the time, like, just push through. It's like there's no actual guarantee.
Books, right? You're like, get to book 7. Like 7? Well, it's only the size of 3 regular fantasy books because the early ones are pretty short. They get beefier as
they get a little beefier. They're still pretty short because the font is pretty big.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And also one thing worth noting, I think the way people phrase it is somewhat wrong, where people act like it's just kind of like Stormfront level, and then suddenly like it gets really good.
No.
Like people be like, "I'll wait till you get changes," when it's like it makes people think like changes is like so much mind-blowingly better than the other Dresden books. And changes is my favorite. But like there's a lot that are pretty close.
Yes.
But it's like I think changes is incomparably better than Stormfront.
Yes.
But so small favor and
Yeah.
turncoat.
Mm-hmm.
And deadbeat, you know what? Anyways. So we had a list of topics that I came up with. And the first was were there any actually questions? You had a bunch of questions in your reviews. Do you remember what they were, or should I just say like
no,
okay.
This is your homework. You're supposed to
read
my reviews.
I'm sorry, I did, but I wanted to so the first thing I think you were wondering about is the Starborn stuff. You wanted to be like, was that just a thing in Peace Talks? And it was not. I actually don't remember exactly when the first mention is, but the first like overt mention is in White Knight, where as Lash is kind of like tying rip Lash. I miss you, Lash. Lash is like, haven't you noticed that like Leia said this was like a powerful demon? He walks behind and you just like YOLO wrecked it as an amateur. Dresden's like, oh yeah, that does seem weird. I hadn't considered that. And Lash was like, yeah, dummy, you're Starborn. You have the power. And Harry's like, what? The power to do what? She's like, Ebenezer will tell you in 6 books.
See, clearly I was just too emotionally distraught by Lash dying in order to pick up on that.
You know my favorite thing about Lash? My favorite thing about Lash is how convincing Lash is.
Yes.
Like, a lot of the time I find in books where there's, like, the hidden, the temptation, it's like, you're just like to the protagonist, no, you dense character, don't do this.
Yes.
But I'm like, meanwhile, Dresden keeps saying how dangerous it is, and I'm like, you know, she does raise some good points.
Yep, she does. She does.
I kind of want you to take up the coin, Dresden. Or at least use Lash more, you know? Like, use her knowledge, I beg you.
Mm-hmm. And knowledge is so tempting, right? It's such a better play for Dresden than power. He doesn't want power. He doesn't care about it. He doesn't care about dominating other people. But he is very curious. It's such a good way for her to sink her little hooks into him.
Yeah, with the old like, oh, and we have, I'm just gonna quick comments. Where his temptation is like the temptation of like, hey, you know the thing where you do good and help people? I could help you do it better. It's just like, no. Stop. But man, I love the Lash plot line. There's some tinfoil like Jim dropped once in an interview. Someone asked like, is Lash gonna show up again? Not Lassiel, Lash. And Jim just drops like, well, she was in Ghost Story. And no one can bloody figure out who it was.
Well, now I need to reread Ghost Story.
Yes.
That's the only possible thing to do.
Me too. Me and another like really big Dresden nerd in the spoiler chat were trying to go, like, he thought it was one of the statues, but the statue was like one of them in the graveyard, like one of the graveyard statues that has like the monster speech to him, but that was actually Mab. So who's a better character than Thomas, by the way?
We can fight about this later. We can fight about this after.
And yeah, so I know like there's a different place where everyone kind of gets sold. Like some people are sold on book 1. I know Bengus here. Bengus was sold on book 1. I know Alex Nieves was sold on book 1. Scott was sold on Summer Night, which I'm seeing a weird like Summer Night's getting more divisive, and I'm not happy about it. Like when I started reading it, it was like, yeah, Summer Night's really good. Now I see more people.
Summer Night.
Yeah, I don't get.
Like Summer Night.
I think it's just because how much it throws at you.
It's a lot.
I really like Summer Night on a lot of the Fae focused books on Reread, because earlier you're just like, what the hell is going on here? Like, proven guilty when Maeve first brings up, like, I think Mab's going insane, but we know Mab doesn't want to destroy the world now, because it would be really easy for her to destroy the world.
She would. It's the easiest for her.
Yeah, she could just take a week off.
Like, take a vacation. That's
yeah, she's just like, I'm gonna take a vacation and not tell anyone, and it's dead. It's gone. I love how that's subtly like kind of revealed in Cold Days. Like you're not directly told like, okay, Maeve's lying here, but as soon as you see the outer gates, it's kind of like
the unveiling of the outer gates is like one of the best parts of Dresden. So good, and you get to see what Rashid is doing, and it's so many good reveals. Yes, you are right, dearie. Lash was an incredibly clever addition to the story.
Yeah, and apparently, so at changes, there's some things I don't know the way Jim would have gone this, but before he wrote it, he knew Dresden was going to take one of his available power ups, but he
Right.
did not actually plan which of the power ups
That
Dresden
was
was
going
going
to
to
be
take. So it could
interesting.
have been Lassiel, it could have been Mab, it could have been he could have ended up going doing a bunch of necromancy,
Right.
which would have been wild. I don't know how Cold Day. I guess Cold Days probably would have had a different title, but like, would the Maeve thing still have happened? Would we have had Nicodemus against Maeve?
Right? What would the outcome have been? I don't know. I was like the whole time after Lash left and sacrificed herself, Harry's headaches, I had always assumed it was just her and she had just pocketed herself off in part of his subconscious and she was going to come back. And I guess kind of that is what happened, but I was expecting it to just be her. I was so suspicious of those headaches from the beginning.
They are. I love that reveal. I think I just like when people get to that reveal. I just like being like, "What? You didn't see that coming? I thought it was obvious. You didn't see Harry was pregnant with a mind baby coming? Like, it was so spelled out."
The weirdest stuff happens in this series and I love it. The weirder it gets, you're like, yeah, that's awesome.
The thing is that actually, the more you think about the Harry mind baby thing, the more it makes sense. Because
Yes.
it's like Athena, right? Like the original spirit of intellect. And it shouldn't make sense. Like, it should be crazy.
The good thing is that Jim Butcher is a giant nerd and he clearly loves like all mythology / folklore. So whatever he can take, he will just pull it in. So definitely should have picked up on the Athena vibes earlier.
And that's something he actually, I think, does very well from the start, is he picks like the coolest and most fitting interpretation of mythology. I love his Hades.
Yes.
Like Hades. I was like, no expectations for that.
Yeah. I loved it. When my dad got to that point, he was like, are you kidding me? Like, is this seriously going to be Hades? Like the Hades. I was like, just roll with it.
Yeah. You know, you like, come on, you know you like this Hades.
You know, yeah.
He's got a dog named Spot. Like, come on. Oh yeah, Crinkle. Also being Odin, also being a CEO.
Yeah.
I love the multi-mantle stuff. There was actually something you said during the Alan that I wanted to bring up, because I'm not sure how much of it is Jim always knew what was going on and how much of it was less dumb Jim recovered from what dumber Jim gave him. This is how Jim describes himself, by the way. When people say like, how have you had the series improved? He says, I like to think I've gotten less dumb over time. And it's like where he lets you believe so many characters are just kind of one note, and then you learn they aren't. And sometimes I wonder like how many of them he actually knew what was going on, and how many of them he just got to turncoat and he was like, I think I can actually make Morgan a good character.
Right.
And I can recover this past
the romantic tension in there with Harry, like the love triangle in that one was also really sad. I love Turncoat. Turncoat is definitely in my top 5 Dresden books. I love it.
It would probably be 6 for me. It's kind of, 1 is Changes. 2 is Battleground. I've read Battleground twice now, and it was even better the second time. I read it first on release date and loved it, and then I saw a bunch of people criticize it a bunch, and I was going and I was like, I don't think I agree with these criticisms. And then I read it a second time, and I was like, yeah, I definitely don't agree with this criticism. This book is amazing. And I have seen someone else who was kind of mid on Battleground the first time, loved it the second time. So I'm starting to think it might be one of the biggest like reread jump books, but we shall see. Then so Battleground second, and Skin Game is third. Because Skin Game is, I actually think, the most impressive one.
Skin Game's the funniest one for sure.
It is. Parkour.
It gets funnier every time. Like you would think it would get stupider every time, but it just gets funnier. Like by the end, I could not, every time I read that word, I would have to close the book. So I was like, I can't do it again. Like, what is the next one going to be?
I know, like the last one where Michael is like, Harry, I don't think one's supposed to say parkour. I think one only does parkour. It's like, I don't judge your battle cries. Anyway.
So good.
But Skin Game would be 3. Skin Game, like, because the 2 I like more, Changes and Battleground, they're like series shaking events. So it kind of makes sense that they're my favorite. But Skin Game is very much like a normal Dresden book.
But it has all those people, right? It has Nicodemus, it has Michael, it has like, the A team is in Skin Game. It's really hard not to like it.
Yeah, it also just has like some of, I think chapter 20. It's when Harry first goes and sees Michael, and he like
that's called the most emotionally distressing chapter of my fucking life. Like when you think, sorry, I don't know if we're allowed to swear on this.
You can, absolutely you can.
If that is the chapter where he goes and you think that Michael Carpenter is going to die, I was like shaking. I could not handle that. I can't even think about it.
That was 31, I think, which I like even more.
Okay. That's 31. I can't even describe how, because I really thought he was going to do it. I really thought that it was going to happen and I was not going to recover.
Yeah, I would not have been. I mean, in small favor, like the first time. And also, Charity is another example of one of the characters who, in the early books, a lot of people are just like, whatever. And then proven guilty happens, and you're like, let's go, Charity. Mm-hmm. And then, small favor, I think when Charity tells Harry to stay in the hospital, that would it's probably like of the first 10 books. You ask me what's the best moment in the series, I'm taking that as my pick. Even though, like, you know, there are some louder ones, like, you know, Guard riding in on Huey helicopters while blasting Ride of the Valkyries at full volume and shooting the soldiers of hell. Like, also, that's hard to beat.
Also, Dresden on a dead dinosaur.
Oh, Dresden on a dead dinosaur. That is also, yes.
So good. Skin Game is also where we get Butter's first appearance, right? As a knight.
Yeah. That's where he takes out the right saber.
Yes, Skin Game is amazing.
Yeah, Skin Game, like it's kind of just, I think it has my favorite mid-book climax of like the entire series. Mm-hmm. I don't think the end is like quite as wild as like Changes or Cold Days. Cold Days and Skin Game are always interesting because Cold Days I think is more like hype. It's more insane. Yeah. Because Cold Days from a world building like reveals perspective. You've got the 2 rapid fire. You've got Demonreach. Mm-hmm. And then the Outer Gates.
Yeah. There's a lot of lore reveals in Cold Days.
Yeah, they are dope. And yeah, this is actually like one of my favorite things about Dresden is how well the side cast is developed. Yes. Especially with time skips. Right? Like
this is also the hardest thing to talk about in those early ones because I'm like, oh, the side characters, like they're just not very good. And then on the inside, I'm like, but I love them. I can't stand if anything bad happens to them because they're so good now and just like sitting there. And then I'm always like really scared that people in the comments are gonna be like, this girl's an idiot. Like obviously all of these characters are amazing. I'm like, I'm not, I promise. I'm just trying to stay like within the realm of this video, but it's very difficult.
I'm really looking forward to Alan reading Turncoat and seeing if he gets sad about Morgan and if he changes his mind on Morgan. I remember seeing a meme from someone in Discord when it was after like Alan's first Stormfront review. He rants about Morgan because he really doesn't like Morgan. Mm-hmm. And someone had a meme of like the person pointing to Turncoat, like have you seen? I forget what the meme was. It was great though. Chief Hand Grenade, if you're watching this video, it was your meme. So I don't remember what the meme was. But I remember laughing. Your poker face was so much better than mine would have been. Like I couldn't have done that live show. Even if like if I was on it, I couldn't have done it. I would have just been like, oh.
Think about the things I have to keep a straight face for at work. Like I have a lot of experience with not showing any emotions.
It's true. Although I have some for customer service for that as well.
That's true.
Scott actually wants more F-bombs from you, by the way.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, so you can...
It's hard for me to, like, it's very... Booktube is such a weird place. Like, I curse a lot. It's very difficult, actually, having children, because I really try not to do it in front of them. And then on Booktube, I watch back my videos, and I'm like, this seems so wholesome, and not at all like you, Sarah. So I will, some may slip out.
I curse like once or twice. I don't try not to curse constantly, but some get out. It's like Michael in Battleground when he hears that. I love that scene. Also, Michael, like on reread, when you go back, I don't know if you're going to reread the series, but if you go back to like Grave Peril, you'll see how much Michael has evolved. Like even though he was lawful good, he was kind of like not totally cool with the magic thing.
Yeah.
And I think it was part of like having a magic daughter where he kind of was just like, this isn't too bad.
This. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What I like about Michael and his character is that it's really easy to make a character like Michael and make him boring. And Jim Butcher uses his things that should be Michael's strengths that then turn into his weaknesses. Like he's unable to do certain things because his conviction is so strong, or he is so forgiving that he will let people, like he will put people in a position where they can hurt somebody else. Like his goodness works against him sometimes, and it's really, really good. I have read Christmas Eve.
I think it's the epilogue of Battleground, right?
Yeah, it was in the book. It was in the version that I had.
He just published that. He just released that for free on Christmas Eve night, by the way, in like 2018 or something, like 2 years before Peace Talks came out.
So were people suspicious when Murphy was not in it?
No, people noticed all the characters who weren't in it. So
Right.
people were like, no Ebenezer, who's his granddad.
Mm-hmm.
No Murphy, but also, it's the middle of the night. She could just been asleep.
True.
People were also like, there were how many casualties?
Imagine, I can't even imagine being, you can imagine because you weren't one of these people, but I would have been rabid. Like I just would have been like that meme of the person with all the like theories on the wall. And what the fuck is going on? Like, where are all these people?
Yeah, I was not. I think a lot of people who waited 5 years for Peace Talks were kind of somewhat expecting Murphy's days to be numbered. Partially just because, and this is, I think Murphy was never going to sit out. Like Murphy was never going to be like, the guy in the chair trope.
Mm-hmm.
Murphy was never going to be the background person.
No.
But also, unlike Harry, who, is just going to basically stay. He's going to age a little bit more, but he's going to stop aging in like 8 or 9 years, and his magic is only going to get better. And he's the Winter Knight. So like physically, he's getting better and better. Murphy ages.
Yes.
And also Dresden keeps fighting like tougher and tougher opposition.
Mm-hmm.
So when Murphy was like in her physical prime and fighting Red Court vampires, it was kind of like, this is awesome. But people were like, are we going to really have torn ACL Murphy past her prime fighting like godlike beings? So people, I think I was expecting her to go out just because I figured like she's not going to quit. She's because of how stubborn she is.
Yep.
It just would not be in character for Murphy to be like, you know what? I've logically deduced that my risk of dying has now increased if I fight on the front lines. So I've decided to step back, right?
But it must have still been a surprise to go from on one page, she is blasting like a giant out of the sky, and then bam, she's dead. Like,
oh yeah, I was shocked when it happened like that. Like,
yes.
Yeah, I had to resist the throw the book across the room.
Oh my god,
Battleground was almost thrown.
I was sending voice messages to Colton because we were reading it at the same time. And I'm pretty sure not the scene where she dies, but the scene like 2 chapters later. Well, first of all, when Harry fights Butters immediately afterwards, and then like the scene where he goes back and has to like say goodbye to her body and kind of like lay her to rest there. I don't understand how he understood a single word that I was saying. It was just like hysterical. I'm embarrassed now. Like, I can't believe I was talking like that. I couldn't even record it. I was like, I cannot put this out onto the internet because I cannot form sentences right now. I didn't even think that, like, I really like Murphy, but Murphy wasn't like my favorite of the side characters.
Don't tell Scott, but she wasn't quite my favorite either.
Sorry, Scott. Is she Scott's favorite?
Yeah. I think Scott actually liked her like even more than Harry. Like,
how heartbroken was Scott? Is Scott here?
Yeah. I think Scott was here. I don't know if Scott is still here.
We'll have to ask him.
But yeah, he was like, damn you, Jim Butcher. But love Battleground anyways, because Scott is here for the emotional damage, like yes, I am.
Me too.
And I also, there was something I was going to talk about. Oh yeah, do you think you're going to ever like reread Dresden? Would it be a series you read again?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. I reread books a lot.
Yeah, me too. Do you think you would go like through them sequentially, like start at one and go through? Or do you think you'd just be like, hey, I feel like reading Turncoat, I'll just read Turncoat?
I will probably do both. I think there will be a time where we'll have to read all of them because I will want to know what things come up when and how I feel about things as they're changing. I don't know when that will be, but I will most definitely pick up random ones, be like, I feel like reading this right now. And this always happens. I just think like, oh, I'll read a chapter of this, and then it's the whole book.
That happens. Yeah,
Yep.
Dresden is why I don't have reading slumps, because
Right.
when
You
a
just
reading slump
ignore it.
approaches, I'm just like, I just grab changes.
Yep.
It's like, it's gone now. Well, then I usually also read Ghost Story and Cold Days and Skin Game. But I have a problem. So
You have an illness.
yeah, I will say one thing that there's some things that I'm not convinced Jim Butcher like completely knew was going on. I think early in his books he put in things that he was like, I'm gonna trust future me to figure out. One thing he absolutely did know, and is really obvious on reread, is that Thomas knows Harry, his brother, during like Grave Peril and Death Masks. One of my favorite like reread things that is different is there's the duel in Death Masks, and Thomas is the second. And he's getting like really drunk. And the first time you're just like, Thomas doesn't care about anything, whatever. He takes things so casually. On reread, you realize he's getting drunk because he thinks he's about to watch his brother die.
No.
So yes, that is right. You can expect on reread some more emotional damage.
Yes.
It was not expected. There's a lot of those like that.
My number one beef with Jim Butcher at this point in time, if I had to meet him and accuse him of something, it would be clearly, blatantly favoring other secondary characters over Thomas, who's clearly superior, and then giving them a bigger role in subsequent books to make people like you and Colton think that they're better characters, but really you just think they're better characters because Jim Butcher decided not to do anything with Thomas in like the last 4 books, which I'm
just saying, Thomas has definitely had more screen time than Mab, and I like Mab more.
But Mab gets like all of the pivotal moments in the late books. I like Mab too, and she has like shot up my favorite character list after the last like 5 books. But we get the end. I don't remember, is it Turncoat or whichever book it is, where Thomas is tortured, and he has like built up all of this. He spent all this time trying to go against his nature, and then it just gets tortured out of him, and he feeds on people. And we see so little of that fallout, and we get to see so little of him changing after that. And I just feel like he just gets swept off to the side. I love Thomas.
Okay, I will say
he's not been used to his full potential. As a character being added to the series, I feel like he is one of the most important. He is a family member for Harry who had no family. His own grandfather didn't tell him that he was his grandfather. And then all of a sudden he has a brother who he loves and wants to take care of. And Jim Butcher is like, sorry, I'm going to put you underground, or I'm going to tie you up for this book. And I'm just like, stop it. Let Thomas have his moment.
Okay, a couple things. I would like to say first, where Thomas sits on I really like Thomas. I especially love Thomas's brother relationship with Harry. Yes. I think they're the best brothers I've ever read, like so in fantasy. Like when they meet up again in Cold Days and they're insulting each other, that hit me in the feels. I think a lot of like some of the other characters, even on their own, are more interesting than Thomas's. This is my position. I don't know if you've watched my Dresden tinfoil hat theory, but I can say now you'll like one of them. I think Thomas is taking up Amarachius. Like I'm 100% convinced. One, it's the Sword of Love, and love is kind of his thing. Like he has got the monologue about it in Blood Rights, and 2, that's a dick joke, which makes it more likely in a Jim Butcher book.
You can count on Jim Butcher to capitalize.
2, I'm kind of convinced. So the last book before Big Apocalyptic Trilogy is going to be the time travel book, and I am convinced that, Thomas is the half vampire older brother. So if we were to trust the trope, we would say that he will betray Harry. And Ebenezer is the wise mentor. So if we were to trust the trope, he would be the steady ally. I think it will be the opposite. Right. I think Ebenezer corruption arc is happening. I'm fully convinced Ebenezer is going to be the antagonist of the time travel book.
No.
Yeah, I'm fully convinced.
Like because of things that have happened now, or you think all along he has?
Yeah, I think Ebenezer thinks Harry, he'll be like, I'm doing it for his own good, and he's like, I'm gonna fix things for Harry, probably related to Thomas. To Harry, I think Thomas will be involved in that, and Ebenezer's gonna be like, I'm gonna stop this brother relationship from happening, because that's absolutely something Ebenezer would do. And then I think Thomas is bringing out Amarachius. And some people are like, yeah, he's a vampire. And I'd like to point out the metaphysical similarities between a red court, a vampire like Susan, who has not gone full vampire, like a half-blood, and a vampire, a white court vampire. Yeah, and then there's blampires. And I guess jampires exist as well. There's a jade court that we're not going to see.
Is this something I missed, or is this from like an extra?
No, this is a thing. Well, it got technically brought up in Death Masks. Shiro said he fought a duel with a Jade Court vampire. But the Jade Court, Jim has been asked about it, and Jim has like, they're ultra isolationist. They're kind of like, they think China is a fad. They're over in the Eastern thing. They're like, this China thing won't last. Like, it'll be like the Min Dynasty again soon. Right. So we're not really going to see them much. But anyways, a White Court vampire is a person who has like a demon type thing living on them that feeds on something and is trying to corrupt them. That is exactly the same thing as a Red Court half-blood vampire. And Susan was able to wield a sword when her motivations were fitting. So I totally think Thomas can use a sword as a White Court vampire. Anyways,
I would love that.
That's my thesis.
Gosh. Would love it.
Also, what do we think? What do you think of Ghost Story?
I love Ghost Stories. Or Ghost Story, sorry. I was nervous when I went into it because it did seem to be divisive, but I think after I read it, a lot of people commented and said that people just really didn't like that James Marsters didn't do the audiobook. So maybe that's where a lot of the upset came from. I don't know. And it's really hard, like when you can binge them and you can go from the end of changes and then you can go, forward another book, then it's really not a big deal to take a little side quest in Ghost Story and get all this interesting lore and world building, because then you can hop right into the action afterwards.
Yeah, and I think Ghost Story, I really like Ghost Story. It'd probably be my 7th or 8th favorite. It'd be like in the top half for sure. Yep. I like it more on each reread. I remember young me, I read Dresden pretty young for the first time. Young me was like, not that much happened, and there wasn't enough action for young me. And I just want to know what Harry as the Winter Knight is going to look like. So young me was like, I want to get to Cold Days. And I remember the next couple times I reread a Dresden, I skipped Ghost Story. I committed blasphemy. And then I finally read it a second time and I was like, holy crap, that was really good. Then I read it a third time and I was like, that was really good. And then it's kept getting better. I still think it has I think Jim at times struggles to deal with having like a completely passive protagonist.
Yes.
Because normally Harry's the opposite of that. Harry will just even in Stormfront, he'll kick in the door of Marcone's place and be like, and I'm all out of gum, But,
sorry to jump around like a bajillion. I feel like we're just like pinging everywhere. But speaking of Marcone, that was actually one of the most shocking parts of Battleground for me, finding out that he had picked up a coin. I was like, what? This seems to go against like his whole setup of being this independent person who doesn't let anybody else influence his life, can't be manipulated by anybody else. I was truly shocked.
Did you read Even Hand, the Marcone short story?
No.
Okay. Read Even Hand.
Would that have convinced me?
Probably not, but I think so. Obviously, Battleground. As soon as people read Battleground, the question is, when did Marcone take up the coin? I think for 2 reasons. I think he was slightly ahead of changes. I think it was like during the same time period-ish that Harry took up the Winter Knight mantle, just because I think Marcone has somewhat mirrored Harry throughout the entire series. And there's a conversation in Changes where Harry threatens Marcone and is like, and all like, kick your ass basically. And Marcone's like, is that how you think it would go down? And it kind of like, if Marcone has Thorm Namshiel there, it makes a lot more sense that he'd be like, I don't think he would kick my ass actually. Because normally, like before that, he would avoid a fight with Harry unless it was on like the turf he wanted it on.
Totally.
So I kind of think, I don't think he had it. I mean, we have his point of view, so we know it's somewhere in between Even Hand and Battleground, because it'd be ridiculous for him to not mention it during Even Hand. But I think it was kind of around Changes where he took it up. And okay, I'm going back through chat now. But we can absolutely get some love for Thomas's alter ego and how worried Harry was that Thomas had gone like dark. And it's like, nope, he's pretending to be a French homosexual hairdresser.
He's just at the salon.
Yeah, it's such a Jim Butcher reveal.
It is.
Right. Yes, facts. That scene is so good.
It is.
All right. Yeah, and I think also another thing that Jim has said that you probably haven't seen, because someone
I haven't watched
asked
any interviews with him at all.
So someone asked Jim. I've watched basically every Jim Butcher interview.
Of course you have.
So someone asked Jim like how long can Demonreach hold something prisoner, and like what are the restrictions? And he said Demonreach cannot hold any being with free will indefinitely. So
that's a scary thought.
I mean, Ethnu doesn't have free will, to be clear.
Okay.
But Thomas does.
Thomas does. Yeah.
And someone, do you remember the British dude in that he talks to at the beginning of Skin Game? There's like a British dude in Demonreach. Dresden fans are like, we want to figure out who this British dude is. Anyway, people are really worried about because it's Skin Game starts and he mentions like all the beings in Demonreach will be like, I offer you unlimited power, death, skull, death, blah, 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 and like really crazy things.
Yep.
And then there was just a British dude who's just like, piss off.
Oh, he's under the...
Yeah. And people are like, does the British dude have free will? And Jim, you know how Brandon says Raffo? Mm-hmm. Jim Butcher has a version of Raffo, which is, of course, he does a little dance and goes, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you.
Is the British dude the Merlin? Is he?
He's not. That's the only person we know he isn't. Someone asked, what would the Merlin's accent be? And he said it would be British, but it would be so British it's unintelligible. So it isn't the dude in Demonreach.
So it's ancient, like.
We don't know who it is. Like it could be a lot of people. I think someone thought it was H.P. Lovecraft. But it's not the original Merlin.
Okay. It's one thing we do know for sure. Do you have any tinfoil theories about the original Merlin?
No. That's the only, there's a lot of tinfoil theories about that. I don't go that far where it's like, Harry's actually going to be the original Merlin and he's going to time travel. And I'm just like, no, stop it. I
don't like time travel. I'm nervous for the time travel stuff. I almost never like it.
I was worried until I was like, I wonder if Ebenezer is going to be in it. Because there's, I think, 2 books where reading them, I'm like, there was some time travel shenanigans here. Mm-hmm. And one is Proven Guilty.
Yep.
I mean, there's still mysteries in Proven Guilty. Who hit him with the car?
Yep.
Who fixed Little Chicago? We still don't know. That's like the only time I might accept past Harry as a theory. Every other time I'm like, no, this is terrible. Cowl is not future Harry. Stop it. But I think he might have fixed Little Chicago. And the other is peace talks because corner hounds show up, which corner hounds, they're like the hounds of tin something. They're a Lovecraft thing. Mm-hmm. They chase people with time travel and try and kill them. So it's like, there's no way Jim did that by accident. I don't believe that.
I mean, I feel like there's very few things he does by accident now after having finished the series.
Oh, this is going to be amazing, by the way. Yeah. That's going to hurt.
It is. The Justine part was painful. That hurt.
I kind of predicted that in Peace Talks. I was like, Justine's acting a bit. I didn't realize how far it went back, though. I think this was a reread one. This is one where I'm not sure if it's Jim kind of messed up and then kind of fixed it to make it look like he never messed up, mm-hmm. or if he planned this all along. I think he planned this all along because Justine had like some issues. Like, so you probably know it a lot better than I do. I don't think it was done super well in Grave Peril. She had like a condition, and then that just went away.
Yeah.
And I was like, did you just forget about this? But it was because she was infected. I don't know how it would work from Harry's perspective. Or maybe it's for like Ebenezer is like not actually as hard. Like I don't think Ebenezer would actually kill him. Like I think as an antagonist, Ebenezer is going to be like, I'm going to do these things for your own good.
Right. Not pure evil. Just.
I don't think Ebenezer is going to be like, I think Haas is a bad guy now.
It would be interesting to see. I want to know how he's going to react to Thomas in the future now that he knows who he is.
Probably violently.
Yeah. But it's so unfair.
It is. It's absolutely unfair. You're correct. I mean, Thomas is Jim Butcher's backup punching bag. I don't know if you've noticed this.
He is.
Where Jim just punches Harry a bunch. And then he's kind of like, Harry's looking a little beat up. Let's just switch over.
Right? Let's punch his brother so we can get Harry emotional damage and Thomas physical damage at the same time.
Which as a goal is to torture us, the reader. So... Because he's been asked, he's like, why do you enjoy torturing your characters? And he's like, I don't. I enjoy torturing you guys, and this is my method. So, what interview was this? Oh, I watched a bunch of Jim Butcher interviews recently because I had to win an argument. I had to be right on the internet. It was a thing. The interview, I think he's talking about like where he got asked about the Thomas Demonreach thing. It was he did 2 in 2020 with Priscelli. No, he did 3 with Priscelli. It was the one with Priscelli, who, for Sarah, who probably doesn't know what I'm talking about, Priscelli has been like his long-term like content editor, like his head editor. She did the maps for Codex Alera, and she ran the trailers for Peace Talks and Battleground. And it was the one where they were actually like in the same house. Yeah.
Nice.
And that's where that got mentioned. Also, my favorite little thing that I heard, and this is an example of Jim is not, some things are not deliberate, is he got asked about what's something that like you tried to do, and then your beta readers were like, this is a continuity error. And he didn't say who it was, but he tried to bring someone up who he'd killed, and he'd forgot he'd killed. And he couldn't talk his way out of that one. So, kind of. It has been alluded that the Warden of Demonreach can use the people in Demonreach, but that it's probably a bad idea. Like he mentioned, someone mentioned like what would happen if someone like Odin, who's also Crinkle, was stuck in Demonreach, and Jim said he'd be a really useful person to have in Demonreach because you could send him out as Odin while keeping Crinkle stuck in Demonreach, so basically Odin couldn't then just run away. But Ethnu really only has one mantle, I think. So I don't. That seems like a good way to get burned,
right?
Because Ethnu's really overpowered.
Do you think that Harry is going to be the Winter Knight until he dies?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think he'll probably get out of it. Although, so for Harry's arc in the future, I think he's going to. Oh, my cat's here. He's going to continue to like associate with more and more bad people, but he's going to continue to do so for the right reasons.
Right.
And so he won't actually be in a corruption arc. So it will look like a corruption arc, but he won't actually do the bad things to make it a corruption arc. It's kind of,
which is basically what everybody thinks of him right now. This is how the World Council.
I think he's gonna. I mean, he's kind of terrifying, right?
Yes.
Like from the outside perspective, especially because I've brought this up. Like on the whole, we're bringing the cat in. Harry is not willing, like on the deontologian to utilitarian. So like whether the actions matter or the outcomes, if he thinks what he's doing is the right thing, he has he becomes John Wick in terms of having no quit. So like when he's wrong, or when he'll often end up doing things that like symbolically seem important, but could have pretty horrific outcomes. Also, this is also a totally valid pick for who fixed Little Chicago. I mean, isn't Ethnu's armor just her skin? It's made of the bronze. Like, it's not really armor. It's just that's what she's made of. Yeah, Ethnu is not to be messed with.
Now, because Colton said that he caught her like a Pokemon, I'm imagining her as like Sand Slash with body armor on.
So Colton's saying, what if Harry gets the Black Staff? I mean, he would be if Eb dies, he would be the natural inheritor of the Black Staff, of the person who because he's kind of, now that Morgan's gone, Lucio is depowered. Excluding senior council members, he's one of the more terrifying people in the council. He'd still get his ass absolutely handed to him by any member of the senior council. Or if Morgan was still alive, like Winter Knight Harry gets wrecked by Morgan. Some people I think don't understand how good Morgan is at like flashy magic. Morgan's just kind of not like, this equation does seem to check out.
I don't know that they would give it to him though. I feel like.
Yeah, I believe it works in that whoever the Black Staff is can will it to whoever they want. So I don't actually think it's up to the senior council. I think it'd be up to Eb. So I could see that could happen then. I don't know who else Eb would will it to. Because, like, you know, he probably trusts Listens to Wind more, but I don't know how well Listens to Wind would really work as a Blackstaff. That's who someone mentioned. If the Merlin died, who would end up being like the Merlin? And I'd want it to be Listens to Wind.
I love Listens to Wind. His fight against the Nagaloshi, is that what the creature is
called? Yes, the Nagaloshi. Yeah,
like my favorite Dresden scene.
It's so good.
Of all. It's so good.
I really like the Nagaloshi is one of my favorite, like, pure evil. Like, there's no moral grayness at all.
Yep.
He's one of my favorite, like, just straight up pure evil antagonists in the genre. Just, he's such a dick.
He is such a dick.
Yeah, I mean, Morgan was terrifying, right? I mean, he nuked a Nagaloshi. Mm-hmm. That was pretty badass.
Yes.
I think even Alan will admit that that's cool.
Once he gets there, I think we're going to have to see, like, will Alan's, like, stubborn nature win out against how awesome Dresden is? Like, is he going to just reject it on principle?
Yeah. So for this, like, the Gatekeeper would be an obvious choice. I think the Gatekeeper's just too busy.
Yes.
The Gatekeeper just has a more important job than being the Merlin, right? Because he has to be, like, the Gatekeeper. I love the Gatekeeper, by the way, Rashid. He literally might be one of my favorite characters in the series. He has, like, not a lot of scenes, but he steals every scene he's in.
He does. Right from the beginning, too, even before you know how cool he is. Before you know what his role is and what he does, you can tell that he's one of the good ones.
If I could have a short story from any character's perspective, it would be the Gatekeeper. And
sense.
It's never going to happen, because I'm sure he knows way too much.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be awesome. Okay, so I have a question for chat. Why is Mab a better character than Thomas?
This is so unfair because Jim Butcher gives you so much more in these last books. Don't fall victim to this ploy.
So, Mab, I think Battleground is Mab's book.
Yes.
Like, Mab steals the show in Battleground. Mab is my second favorite Dresden character now. And going back and seeing some of her stuff on Reread, like, it's so good. Anyways, I think there have been, like, she kind of is what Dresden could become, where he just keeps putting himself, like, in the face of danger and he gets worn down.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so there's a lot of fantasy characters who are, like, give up their life for the good of others. She's kind of given up, like, the only word I can think of is, like, her soul for the good of others.
Yeah.
Also, just her dialogue is so good.
It is. The part that's really sad is the part where her daughter dies and she says, I was human once.
Like, I was mortal once. Yeah, I literally have a long quote from Battleground written down in my notes in case I need to find it. And it's, like, one of my favorite internal monologues. It's from Battleground. I probably have it. And it ends with, I was mortal once. Yeah. I was. It's where Harry's like, maybe the process of becoming something horrible wasn't about temptation to sin, forbidden delights, and bad impulse control. Maybe it was about choosing to throw your soul into a meat grinder over and over again until what remained couldn't even be seen as a soul any longer. Maybe the real monsters, the big bad monsters, aren't created. They're forged, hammered, one blow at a time. I was mortal once. I then have written below that, mid-tier Dresden book, my ass.
Mab, I'm not going to argue. I really like Mab. I do. And I think that she has had amazing moments in the most recent books. So it's really hard to, pit them against one another. This is why I'm really sad, because people told me to read some of the short stories. And I didn't read them all because I was just too, I was just anticipating the last two books too much, but I read some of them. And I did read the short story where we get to see Thomas as part of his secret order and go out, and we see him like in the background and what he's like sneaking around doing during that earlier scene with him and Harry. And I was convinced that that was going to come up in some capacity in Peace Talks and Battleground. And I had thought that was why he had made that attack on the compound. Like, I didn't think it had anything to do with Justine. I thought it had to do with his like secret underground organization in some way. And I was like, oh yes, we're going to get some awesome like Thomas content. And
unfortunately, we're probably never going to see the Oblivion War from Harry's point of view. Because he's the last person you would tell.
that you would want to know.
Yeah, like if you made a list of supernatural people in these books and you ranked them from best to worst to tell, Harry might literally be dead last. Maybe
So
Carlos below him. Also, one kind of interesting about the Oblivion War is that's actually the point of Ivy's mantle. Is she obviously will remember the being, like when people destroy the memory of something, she obviously remembers it and she holds on to it in case it pops up again so she can spot it. Because obviously once like the Oblivion War people have destroyed the memory of something, they also don't know about it anymore. But Ivy does, and it just sits in Ivy's memory for like a century or so. And then if it doesn't come up for a century, it gets like permanently deleted. Which is one reason why the Ivy thing is so important and why she doesn't intervene, because if she dies, that would be bad.
I love Harry's relationship with Ivy. I think it says a lot about his character that he cares about her as a kid as opposed to her as the archive.
Yeah, for sure. Also, no, Harry and Lara is absolutely the new best ship. It's going to be a train wreck, but it'll be an entertaining train wreck.
So I didn't originally care for, well, number one, I didn't care for Harry and Murphy together. I know that hurts Colton, but I did not like any of their scenes together. I was like, this is just too weird. They're too good of friends. I'm not a big like friends to lovers trope person. And in the beginning, I thought the like Harry and Molly thing was kind of creepy because he was her teacher. But the further we get away from that, and the more that we recognize that they're both going to, you know, have a very, very long lives together, I think I could become a like Harry and Molly relationship supporter in the future.
Molly being the Winter Lady does cause some wrinkles in that. You've read Cold Case, right?
Yes.
I told you that was like the most important one. So that could cause some wrinkles. I think Cold Case is the most important because it really, I think, changes a lot of Carlos's interactions in Peace Talks. Because you kind of get why he doesn't trust Winter. If you read Cold Case. I would also.
No, I didn't. This is the one I didn't read. But then Colton told me what happened because I was like, Colton, I'm missing some context. And he was like,
you have to read Cold Case. The Molly point of view, her first mission is Winter Lady.
I will read it.
That's like the most important one. It's not the best one, but it's the most important one. You failed me, Sarah.
I know, I did.
You tried, Colton.
You tried. A disappointed sigh. Oh my God. That's the sound I make at my kids sometimes.
Damn people not reading Cold Case. Cold Case is important, damn it. I mean, Zoo Day is my favorite.
Zoo Day is the best. Oh, so good.
Because Zoo Day is amazing. If Christmas Eve counted, it would be one of my favorite.
Christmas Eve is good too.
I mean, there are some briefcase ones that don't really matter. Like AAAA Wizardry. I like AAA Wizardry, but it's just like, whatever. Although it has a chronology error. Jim said it was before White Knight, but it has the Paranet in it, so it's actually supposed to be in between like Small Favor and Turncoat, I think.
Right.
Yeah, Derry, go do that. You'll understand why Carlos was being a dick more in Peace Talks and Battlegrounds if you've read Cold Case.
Derry hasn't read it. I would have thought Derry had read everything.
Derry went through pretty recently, but she's going on her reread, so I imagine she'll read the short stories. I read the short stories because I was just waiting for like Peace Talks, so I was going to read anything he put out like instantly.
That makes sense. Whereas I just wanted to get to them. I was like, I cannot read any more of these short stories. I need to read the books.
Yeah,
but I will go back and read them all.
You'll do it when you're like, I want 12 months to be a thing. By the way, actually, really quickly, let's actually do what I said we were going to do because we know the general premise of, I believe, every single future Dresden book. The next one's 12 months, which is the one people know about, which is going to be a very different Dresden book because it's going to take place over 12 months, as one would expect, because Harry's got some emotional stuff to deal with, some trauma to confront, and a white court vampire to try and not get killed by when marrying. And also he's got a bunch of year deadlines.
Do you think he's going to marry her? I guess he will.
I think he will. I mean, it's going to be a train wreck, right? Like it's going to be a dumpster fire.
Imagine
but it's going to be an entertaining dumpster fire. What?
He's marrying his brother's sister. So weird.
Yeah, they don't have no actual relationship.
I know, but it's just a weird concept. Like, yes.
That's the weird part about it for you? Not that she's a multi-centrally old sex vampire?
It's all weird. It's all weird. But that part is extra weird.
I feel like the century old vampire who kills via sex is the thing that makes it more weird than kind of related, but not actually related by blood in any way.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just me. Also, by the way, Colton, I mean, the Valkyrie thing, I don't think Murphy's coming back in the books, because the Valkyrie thing, like how it works is can't come back until like no one who would remember her is alive. That would, I presumably, only include mortals, or else people would never come back.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of rather long-lived people knew Murphy. Like Harry has a life expectancy into like the mid 300s. I don't think he's making it to the mid 300s, but
yeah.
Yes, you heard it here. I don't think I think Harry's dying. So you heard my Colton actually also was. I have the ghost narrator theory.
Yes, this is like Harry is narrating to his godmother, right?
That's I think Harry's ghost, because it explains the tense, which the tense, it could just be it's noir or whatever, but the tense is weird because it's first person retrospective, but like he remembers everything, and Harry is not a genius, so he should not remember everything. But it's exactly, I don't know if you've reread the scene in Ghost Storytime with Leia, where he talks about, like, he describes his fight with He Who Walks Behind. It's like exactly as if it's like if James Marsters is Dresden, Leia was listening to a James Marsters audiobook in that moment.
Yeah.
For a Dresden short story.
Yeah.
Also, in ghost mode, he wasn't like consciously deciding what details to include. So there's some questionable details to include if you're writing a memoir. That makes more sense if he's narrating as a ghost. Anyway, after 12 months is the book that was originally supposed to be book 16 and is now book 19, but it's been pushed back because Battleground existed, and then pushed back because 12 months existed.
Right.
And it is Mir. And Mir is alternate dimension book.
Interesting.
That's right. We're getting, like, you know, the Star Trek thing where it's like the evil version of Captain Kirk. We're getting goatee evil Harry Dresden, who made a different decision in Grave Peril.
Grave Peril. Oh.
Which many people think it was like letting Susan die. I actually have a theory for what that decision is. There's a bit in Grave Peril where Harry's trying to leave with Susan, and they get confronted by, what's her name, Mavra, the vampire.
Yep.
And Michael volunteers to like stay behind so they can leave. And Harry's like, I could just leave with Susan, but then he's like, no, I can't do that. So I think evil Harry left Michael to die in Grave Peril.
I would assume it has something to do with Michael's family, whether it's their child or Michael himself. To me, that would be something that would make Harry snap.
Oh yeah, and we might see Murphy and Mir, because she might not have died if she didn't like hitch herself on the Dresden wagon, because that's arguably what got her in the most trouble. She might be like in charge of the police force, and it's like Harry can be like, really? Evil Harry makes this better? Come on. But that's what I think. I think evil Harry left Michael to die, and that kind of spiraled. So that's book 19. And then book 20, you know what that means? Nicodemus is back. Every 5 books, boys. And it's also going to be the pro wrestling book, which is all the like gods to try and get worship. They were like, well, this isn't working. What if we become professional wrestlers? Yeah. So I believe it's going to be like there was a murder, and Hades is like, I know a PI. Get Dresden on the case. Amazing. And Nicodemus is going to be involved now. He wasn't originally, because it wasn't originally book 20, but he will be now because every 5 books. And
is that what he does intentionally? Has Nicodemus?
Yeah. Nicodemus is every 5. Yeah. 5, 10, 15, 20. It's unclear because now the final book in the Big Apocalyptic Trilogy is 25. It's unclear whether that counts for the Big Apocalyptic Trilogy.
Right.
And next, we have book 21, which is the dragon book. That's all we know about it.
So like the dragon that we see
we don't know which dragon. It's probably Ferrovax, but there's a dragon involved. A dragon will probably be fought, which is concerning because the dragons are kind of terrifying.
They are terrifying.
At first I kind of was like, the pro wrestling sounds weird, but then when it was like when I heard there was like a murder amongst ancient gods, and Hades brings Dresden in to help, I was like, okay, that now sounds really cool.
So you can trust Jim Butcher to make you care about something that should be absolutely off the wall stupid.
True. I mean, he made yelling parkour over and over again hilarious.
He did.
Yeah, man, Farovax is not to be messed with. Considering like if he comes into the world normally, it breaks. So, and then Time Travel Book is 2022. Is book 22, not 2022. And then it's the Bat, the big apocalyptic trilogy, or the big ass trilogy.
And is that how it ends? That
will be the final 3 Harry Dresden books. Right. And they will be called Hell's Bells, Stars and Stones, and Empty Night.
Right.
And I'm so excited for the big apocalyptic trilogy.
And what is his estimated timeline? Does he have a...
Do you mean like for in-world or for that he's publishing? I mean, he'll write them as fast as he can, presumably. But so we don't know for sure. But so it's slightly unclear because there's a lot of potential apocalypses that can happen in Dresden World.
Right.
Like pop quiz, how many can you name? Okay, but there's at least like 5. There's biblical apocalypse, like Lucifer, Demonreach, Outer Gates, Oblivion War. There's probably another one I'm forgetting. So the question is whether each book will be a different apocalypse or whether Jim will just have multiple, whether it'll all be one apocalyptic event, like whether it'll be Outsiders, or whether Jim will just be like, have multiple apocalyptic events at the same time. There's a really good theory that, I don't know if you know, Harry's breaking every law of magic at least once, but with a twist. Like he broke necromancy, he's going to break time travel in the time travel book. Obviously, he killed someone before the first book. He hasn't enthralled anyone yet. I forget if he used mind magic anywhere, but there's theory like the last law is thou shalt not like open the outer gates. And so the theory is that in order to break that law, he'll open it to like charge out of the outer gates.
Right.
Which would achieve cool.
That would achieve cool. It definitely would.
My money would be on the wizard.
Yep.
So yeah, we'll see if those are good, but I would bet on Jim. He's like kept getting better for 20 years.
I trust him. Daria's comment is making me laugh where she says, as long as it's published before she dies, because when my dad finished the last book, he's like, how many more of these are there gonna be? And I was like, 25. He was like, great. So when I'm in the nursing home, you can read me the last one. And I was like, I will. I'll bring it there. You can throw your food at me while I read it to you. But...
So I'd bet on Jim here. I don't think the next books are going to be as epic as Battleground, because like the next antagonist isn't going to be as strong as Ethnu, because like Harry didn't really beat Ethnu. Like he pushed Ethnu over the cliff when like Mab and Titania and Odin and Marcone really did a lot of the hard work. And then he was just kind of like, he's like, a bunch of other people like really loosened the pickle jar, and then he just walked up and was just like, I opened this pickle jar.
This was my doing.
Presumably for future antagonists, he's not going to have Mab and Titania and Odin all fighting them all out in a straight up brawl, which is a slight advantage.
I just keep thinking of that scene of like Mab with the rebar. I wish we could get some sort of Harry adaptation. Everything about Battleground is so cool. Mab is really cool. I still like Thomas more, but whenever I think of that, I'm like, oh, Mab is such a badass. Like she really is.
She is. I have legitimately seen like a criticism for Battleground somewhere, and it's the most baffling criticism you're ever going to hear, which is, are you ready for this? Yep. Jim does not let his badass female characters have badass moments.
What?
Yeah. And then right after I saw that, I see someone else was like reacting to Battleground, and they put the quote where Mab is like, the numbers stand 1 Mab to none. That advantage will be sufficient. Like, what a badass thing to say.
I mean, and Murphy has tons of badass moments in Battleground.
And changes when she just whips out Fidelakis and just like charges.
So many. She has so many good moments.
And again, I mentioned it earlier, but Guard coming in on a Huey helicopter, blasting Ride of the Valkyrie at max volume, fighting like Nicodemus. Yeah. It could be. Maybe Harry's just like, I want those bells. He literally started with fighting a Kraken.
Yes, that was so good, Derry. That was the best. Molly is my dad's favorite character, and he loved that part.
Molly is a valid choice for favorite character. Also a better character than Thomas.
Stop it.
I like Thomas.
We're going to revisit this at the end of the series because I feel like Jim is going to allow Thomas to redeem himself in terms of...
I think Thomas is going to have some really good stuff coming down the stretch.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really cool when he wields Amarachius.
Yeah.
That's totally
now I need this to happen. I don't know if I can handle it if it doesn't now. So thanks for that.
Although a lot of my Dresden theories, they're not like, some people are like, we're going to analyze the lore. Me, I'm just like, I think this is going to happen because it'd be funny.
This would be cool.
So I think like Mac, I think some people are like, does he have Intellectus? I think he has Intellectus, but only in his bar.
Interesting.
And I think it's kind of similar like the way Harry has Intellectus on Demonreach. Mm-hmm. Just because it'd be funny to have Intellectus only in a bar, and it explains why his steaks are always perfectly cooked.
Yeah, no one.
He doesn't even have to ask, because he doesn't ask people, how do you like your steak? It's perfect always. And it's because he just thinks to himself, how would this person like their steak cooked? And it spits out like 124 Fahrenheit. He's just like, okay.
Love it.
There you go. Perfect.
I want to go to Mac's bar.
Yeah, I think we all do. We would all like that to exist. We'd probably get funny glares though, because it'd be like all supernatural people and be like, who are these vanilla mortals? Right. These losers. It's like you guys have all the stuff that has technology. We get this. That's the trade-off. I had other stuff that I was going to talk about. Other than Thomas, who would be your favorite characters?
My favorite characters.
Also, actually, to be clear,
I'm guessing.
I would like to preface, is Thomas your favorite non-Harry Dresden character, or is he your favorite Dresden character?
No, Harry's my favorite character.
Okay.
I love Harry, which is funny because in the beginning I was like, Harry, you are the worst. Like, not really, but I wouldn't have been like, oh, Harry Dresden's going to be one of my favorite fantasy characters of all time. But he is now, so I can go back and eat that past Sarah. But other than Harry being at the top, Thomas, Michael, Molly, Mab, and Mouse. All the M's and Thomas.
M's are really good. You didn't even say Murphy, who's an M.
Yeah, Murphy. I like Murphy, but this is like the break in Colton and my friendship is that he loves Murphy with like all of the passion, and I like Murphy. I think she's a really good character, but she's not my favorite.
Yeah, she'd be in my, I'd really like Murphy. She wouldn't be my favorites. My favorites, it'd be Harry is 1, Mab is 2, Michael would probably be 3, and like Molly probably. And then I don't know. Then it gets hard.
It is hard. I really love Butters too. If I can't have Mouse on there as like an animal person, then Butters is my next fave. Butters
would be one of, like, I like Butters, but I like almost all the main Dresden characters more than Butters. Better antagonist, Marcone or Nico. I don't know how much of an antagonist Marcone is, but I did like the video I'm uploading next is my top and favorite antagonists in fantasy, and Nicodemus is on it, so Marcone is, and Marcone isn't. But I don't really I consider him a frenemy, like with Lara and Mab. Well, Nicodemus.
I like Marcone as a character more than I like Nicodemus as a character.
I probably do as well. I just don't consider him as much of an antagonist. Like, I kind of like Marcone. Like, I know he sucks in some ways, but like,
he's still a psychopath. Like, at the end of the day, he's still a psychopath. He just, has
he keeps coming through. Though.
He does. He does.
Shake is betrayed.
I know. Butters. I do like Butters more than Murphy. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Apology not needed. It is incorrect, though, but apology not needed. Oh,
I like this. Mac is the Tom Bombadil. Now I need Mac singing like the Tom Bombadillo song. we need that in there.
The only thing I'm not sure how this fits with is Cold Days, where Sharkface, like he walks before, shows up. Because Tom Bombadil would just be like, go away, and Mac takes out a shotgun and starts shooting him. Colton is upset with you.
I know. Colton already knows this. He's acting shocked, but this is just for show. He knows. He just wants to berate me.
Well, you were going to be mad at Colton for not being here, and Colton is here.
That's true. So clearly he's the better friend.
Yeah, you need to retract your bullying.
But is Colton's mom there? Because that's really who I wanted to come. Like, I could take or leave Colton being here, but I wanted his mom.
So. That's harsh. This is some bullying going on. I wasn't expecting you to bully Colton in this.
That's what it always descends into it. Whether I'm live with Jimmy or whoever it is, it just descends into bullying eventually.
Yeah. I'm just an innocent bystander.
That's true.
I love
you. You are the more Canadian of the two of us.
Colton, thanks for pointing out that there were a bunch of Dresden shirts on Redbubble. I appreciate that.
Good. Hi, Colton's mom.
Okay, I think that is most of the stuff I was gonna talk about. We've gone an hour and 10 minutes, which is pretty good for discussion. So unless you have any questions that you're like, I need to know this.
The only thing we didn't talk about is the novella that's coming out this summer. This seems like a good place to end it.
Yeah, The Law. Oh yeah, we have to ask you this. We're gonna make you answer.
That's a good question. So I haven't actually sat down with my list of favorite series and like put them out, one by one. I mean, it's always going to be below Lord of the Rings and Dark Tower, which are the top two. But it might be number 3. I'm not going to lie. I haven't finished Realm of the Elderlings. I really, really love the Realm of the Elderlings. And when I finish it, it is possible that might make it. But it's really funny because Realm of the Elderlings is a total Sarah series, has all of the things that I absolutely love. I should hate Dresden. I don't like mysteries. I don't like urban fantasy. There's so many things about Dresden that are not my fantasy taste, but I fucking love it. I cannot help really it.
Good. I mean, the mysteries, it's because it's not really the mysteries aren't really what makes it good. As Alan pointed out, the mysteries, which they're not that good. Mm-hmm. The Storm, they're not amazing as mystery novels. It's more like the side characters and the fantasy stuff that make it really good. And I mean, it is urban fantasy, but it's getting kind of more and more epic as we go.
More epic as it goes on. This is very true. But I think I'm going to have a really hard time reading the short story because I'm assuming it's going to be about Rudolph. And I think the level of fury that I had from Morgan in book 1 is going to pale in comparison with me having to see Dresden pay the consequences of Rudolph killing Murphy. I'm not going to be able to handle it. I am going to be so angry. I hate him. I hate him more than almost any other character I've read in fantasy ever. It makes me angry to even think about him. So I think I have a really hard time with this novella. It's just going to be a lot of angry.
Yeah. And I mean, so I know thematically, it works that he can't kill, that killing Rudolph in rage and hatred would be bad. But I still wanted him to kill Rudolph.
Yes.
And I know Butters being able to cut the sword burning him, the burn hand teaches best, call back to Uriel quoting Two Towers at him, is really good. But still. Come on.
I don't know if that's what's going to be about, Hillary. That is just what I am assuming it's going to be about because it's called The Law. I had guessed it was going to be about human law enforcement.
I'm going to have to audio it because I think in physical for a while it's only available in the Subterranean Press. And I'm sorry, I'm not paying $100 and something for a novella, even a Dresden novella that I haven't read. Also, I'd like to note that for after when Dresden starts chasing Rudolph, the Jim Butcher had really had his I'm going to torture my readers Cheerios that morning because it's I'm finding it. 1 second.
I'm finding it. I'm going to track it down.
It's going to be chapter 23. All right.
I just like that you've read it so many times that you know what chapters.
I've only read Battleground twice.
I don't believe that.
It's true. I wouldn't lie to you. If anything, I would exaggerate. Yeah. I don't, but if I was going to do one, that's what I would do. Okay. Here we go. Start of chapter 23. Go me. It's because I see people reacting to Dresden a lot. Dresden is not my favorite series. It's up there, but it's not my favorite. Dresden is my favorite series to watch other people read.
Yes. It's so much fun to watch them go from like skeptical to believers.
Like I'll watch a Changes or Skin Game or Battleground vlog before a vlog for like any other book. Anyways, hate is comforting. Hate is pure. There aren't any questions, any worries about right and wrong, any quibbles about your motivations or goals. There are no doubts. Hate is serene. I was just like, okay, Jim, fine. That's not nice.
Oh God, I like Mindlin's comment. I want Kincaid to deal with Rudolph. I too want Kincaid to deal with Rudolph. I would pay $100 actually to read that novella from Subterranean Press. I don't even like that kind of violence in books. Like I'm not someone who's like, oh yes, the torture scene. Like I'm not usually in it for that, but I would in fact pay $100. I mean,
it's plausible because Kincaid liked Murphy, so. Yeah. It's possible that he might not like kill it for Dresden. It's possible Kincaid could just be like, you know what? I'm gonna kill this idiot. I don't think Kincaid's much of like a torture guy. I think he's more of a just kill him.
Take him out. I'm good with
He's not much of a monologue dude, you know?
No. He just gets it done. He's not gonna flit around with that stuff.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to separate how competent a villain is. If they monologue, they're probably not competent. If they don't monologue, they're probably pretty scary. You know, as soon as Ethne started monologuing, I was like, "You're B tier. Yeah. You're not as scary as these other people. I don't care that you can like have a nuclear eyeball or anything." That was crazy. Look at this audiobook guy, by the way, spelling it Sonya, not Sanya. Was Cold an audiobook, or did he just spell it wrong? No, Shake. No. Even someone jokingly asked Jim about this, and Jim was just like.
No, it's not even a funny joke.
No, there will not be a Rudolph redemption arc. But yeah, I could absolutely see Kincaid just killing Rudolph.
Good.
Like just as part of his to-do list, you know? Just kind of like, all right, first I have to take out the garbage, and then I have to shoot Rudolph 17 times, and then my car's making a weird noise. Andrew, I haven't read this
now and then say that as your first comment.
Yeah, that's uncalled for. But I can't even disagree because I haven't read it. But when I read it, I'll disagree with you. I think Andrew said he thinks Alex Versus is more consistent, but Dresden hits higher highs. Which I mean, Dresden does have some books that I'm like kind of like whatever about. But they're mostly great. Although I know Andrew is one of the I'm going to use the term hater liberally here. I do not actually mean hater. But he's a Battleground hater. I was worried you were going to
take away the air quotes. I think he's legit a Battleground hater.
I was scared you were going to be a Battleground hater.
No.
Every time people read Battleground, I'm just like.
I remember that you were nervous, but no, I loved it.
Good. Congratulations on being correct. I mean that ironically, by the way, guys. Like, I know. But Battleground's great. Come on. Battleground is almost the inspiration for my characterization and action video because I get slightly like tilted by I'm just like a character driven reader. So like it was all action. So I'm like, there's so much good character stuff in that book.
Yes.
Like it's like so much, not just for Harry, for like the entire cast. Mm-hmm. There's probably more characterization and character development going in that book than like any of the other ones.
Yeah.
Bah. Anger.
Is the Alex Verus series first person as well? Andrew? I know, Jake, you haven't read it. You're just like, did she forget that I just said this 2 minutes ago?
No, I haven't read it. I don't know if it's first person or not. I didn't think Colton was going to be a Battleground hater.
I feel like it's impossible for Colton to think a Dresden book is bad now. Like he is so far on the other side that Jim Butcher could write the worst of all like 25 books and call me like, this is A++. Great job.
I don't know. I think Colton would be like, this is weird. This is contrast. I just think he likes all of them because they're all great. So,
I will do top 5 on the fly. I don't know if this is like real top 5 because I haven't thought about it enough. And they're not going to be like in the 5 order. But Changes is definitely on there. Turncoat is definitely on there. Skin Game is definitely on there. Cold Days is definitely on there. And I don't know what the 5th one. Well, probably it's so hard to pick between Deadbeat and Proven Guilty because I love both of them. I love the like T-Rex moment in Deadbeat the most, but I like Proven Guilty so much overall. I don't know which one I would put it.
I'd like to defend Hillary here because I think there are two types of Battleground haters. There are those who say like, oh, you know, it just didn't have enough character, like it was just action and there wasn't character stuff. I'm like, there's so much character stuff. Or like, I just don't get reading this and being like, Jim Butcher's out of form, which some people seem to think. I don't get it. I mean, you can think that. I don't know. I disagree. I get actually this way more. Just being like, so the reason Hillary dislikes it, he's just really, really mad that Jim killed Murphy the way he did. Fair. But you know what? Fair enough.
It sucks.
Anyway, I can tell you my top 5. My top 5 is Changes is 1, Battleground is 2, Skin Game is 3, Cold Days is 4, Small Favor is 5.
So we're very similar. There's much overlap.
And then I guess Turncoat would be 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be my top 6. I could probably rank them all. Because then Deadbeat 7, Ghost Story 8, Proven Guilty 9, White Knight 10, Death Masks 11, Summer Night 12. I forgot Peace Talks. Peace Talks would be below Proven Guilty, above White Knight. And then Summer Night, and then Grave Peril, and then Blood Rights, and then Stormfront, and then Full Moon.
I actually like Blood Rights. Because of the Thomas stuff. I can't hear you now, Jake.
Yeah. Blood Rights from the perspective of a characterization of supporting characters is good. Like, especially with Ebenezer, like at the end, like that scene with Ebenezer, it's fantastic where Ebenezer says he's like the Blackstaff. I just don't like the plot, like either of them. Like the Black Court vampire plot is literally just like, hey, there are Black Court vampires. Bob, go find them. Then Bob's like, I didn't. I went to an orgy. And he's like, okay, but can you actually go find them now? And Bob's like, okay, I found them. And so then they go and then they kill them. And that's the plot. It doesn't intersect with the other one. I don't know. And then the other plot with porn stars is just kind of like, what are we doing here? But it wasn't as bad as you'd expect it to be based on the first.
It really isn't. It really isn't. I was surprised at the restraint, to be honest. I
think in your Blood Rights review, your way of describing it actually made me laugh. You said something like, as interested as Harry normally is in members of the opposite sex. It wasn't that bad here. And I was like, that's a generous way of describing it.
Oh, Harry.
Look at this. He's just taking it out on others for his therapy. That's okay. I saw like why he missed the 1,000 names chat. So had a bad week. It's fine. You can bully us, Andrew.
Yes.
We forgive you.
It's okay.
Okay. I'm roughly out of stuff. Well, technically, I'm almost never out of stuff because I could almost talk about each book individually. But if we start adding more stuff, it'd be 8 hours. So I don't know if I want to go that specific. Dracul was cool, though.
Very cool.
I think I like what we can infer about Dracul, the character, which I saw someone they were reading Battleground, and they're kind of like, why did Dracul leave? Because somewhat self-evidently, Dracul absolutely probably could have kicked all their ass. But this is true for a lot of the really old characters, and I really like Jim Butcher's like really old characters, and I'm picky about really old characters in fantasy. And it's that Dracul's kind of way he operates is he doesn't take risks at all, as far as I can tell. Like, he just tries to get something done, and then as soon as there's any chance he'll lose, he just leaves.
Yeah.
Because he's like 1,000, and he's powerful enough that he can be in situations where he can win 100% of the time, plenty. And if he messes up, long-term consequences. So even though, like, yeah, he could have beat the crap out of everyone there, I mean, he's literally like, Jim Butcher was once asked, hey, who could beat Mab in a straight-up fight? And the two people he said Pharaohvax, like, straight up would 1v1 Mab. Dracul, like, probably. And then the others all had, like, asterisks. Right. Like, it was like the mothers, but they wouldn't.
Right.
The archangels, but they wouldn't. He said like the entire White Council would be like a coin flip. Not the wardens, like everyone.
Everybody.
With their true name, all summoned her, surrounded, full attack. It'd be like coin flip. And then the other vampire courts was like coin flip. Titania is obviously coin flip. Hey, Chief is here. This is Chief Hand Grenade, who I referenced a meme he made related to Alan's review of Turncoat, also known as Rajul. But yeah, Dracul was one of the people. He's like literally Mab level powerful. But
he just gets out.
Like he's just sticking around because like Ethnu's walking around, other immortals are walking around. It's just like if he stays around too long, he could get in trouble. And he's just like, he's like, ain't nobody got time for that.
Yes, it ties into another book you love, Jade Legacy. The quote in Jade Legacy where one of the characters says, I thought that I would care less about dying the older I got, but yes. I actually care more about it as I
had that as the quote I read for my like top 10 books of 2021 list. I really like that quote. It was really good. That book is really good. Yeah. I think I have a video on tinfoil. All right. Are you ready for some mega tinfoil? This one I don't actually think is true. This would be wild if it was correct, but this is my only evidence for it. And that's that in Battleground, like there's the bit where Harry is like seeing things from the perspective of the Grimalkin. And I think Listen mentions that like basically all the Starborns of this era are dead. And there were like 40,000 Starborns. So no, Harry is not a chosen one. He's like a chosen 40,000. It's like an hour-long stretch. Everyone born for that hour is Starborn. Right. And like they're almost all dead. So my tinfoil theory is that being Starborn like attracts conflict. Which is why so much stuff.
A theory. Harry does attract.
No, I don't mean like because people know he's a Starborn. I mean like metaphysically, which is why like so he ends up in so many conflicts. Anyways,
I like that. That's why
it's probably wrong.
Who do you think is evil on the senior council? Like who do you think
is evil?
Yeah.
I don't think any of them are evil. I don't think all of them are nice, but I don't think any of them are evil. I used to think the Merlin might actually be like not like a good guy you don't want on your side, but it's been basically confirmed like that's not the case by good old Jim. He got asked once, this was in a Q&A, the question was actually written by me, like if which character would a short story from that person's perspective change our view of Dresden the most? And it was the Merlin.
I like how you dropped that in. That was my question.
It was, by the way, really good question. Just saying. Jim, if you're watching this interview, I've actually read your other stuff, so I won't be like, yeah, and I haven't read Codex Lair and Anodox Windless, but you reckon it's good? No, I've actually read it multiple times. Yeah, there's actually can be like a lot. Because Listen is a Starborn, and Dracul is a Starborn, and Harry is a Starborn, and probably like 40,000 people who are just like not magic at all were Starborns. No,
this is true. This is very true. The whole time I've just been like, you're too much. I don't trust you at all, and I'm always foiled. But I don't feel bad about it. I don't know. There's something about him. I'm like, I don't like you. You're too likable.
That's a little suspicious, Sarah.
I know. I know.
Okay. Poor Ramirez, Yeah, I see.
That's the real last book. Fight to the death. Battle Royale. Starborn Royale.
Ouch, Pengus. Ouch.
Ramirez is the worst. Thank you.
Okay, you guys both like Rudolph more than Ramirez. Confirmed?
Not true. Not true.
You just said he's the worst.
Okay, fine. The second worst.
Okay, so I can pick anyone else in the series and you like them more than okay. I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of options here. The Nagloshi, Shagmasty.
Except he gets an awesome fight scene. So
he does. He's cool.
Yeah,
but also sucks. Yeah, I don't know. Hey, I mean in her defense, she hasn't read Cold Case. She reads Cold Case, then it all makes sense.
I feel like Cold Case is gonna make me like him less.
I don't know about that. I think it makes him more understandable in Peace Talks and Battleground. I think I would. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything else. It's your fault for having not read it. Come on.
I'll report back.
Yeah, is this? I'll just have to pretend I haven't read Cold Case. For me, it's kind of frustrating and unreasonable in Peace Talks and Battleground. I actually couldn't have done those. Like, I couldn't have done it. I would have just had to rage quit.
Right? Yeah, it was a struggle.
It was got annoyed by my disclaimers. Like, okay, just a reminder, this isn't actually what I think before everything I said.
I expect a lot of him, and he disappoints. Very true.
Because I feel like there's a lot of people who suck more, though. Come on. You know who's the best, though? Listens to Wind.
Yes, he is. Everybody can agree. I feel like there's no Dresden fan who does not like Listens to Wind.
That would just be weird.
It would be weird.
Be like, are you?
He's awesome.
Like, why don't you like Listens to Wind? Something wrong with you? Are you in a Gloshi? Like,
literally the only reason that anybody tells me that now, from now on, I'll be like, yes, I found him.
You'll be like, oh crap, a Nagloshi. You should run, by the way, if you see Nagloshi. Actually, you know what? Running's not going to do anything. You should accept your imminent death if you see a Nagloshi. The Nagloshi is a big deal.
Yeah, it's the creepiest villain so far. The one that
probably the most overmatched Harry's been, like, in the series. Like, he had no chance against the Nagloshi. By the way, Nagloshi, kind of similar thing to Dracul. Like, the Nagloshi probably would if there was a fight between a fight to the death between Listens to Wind and the Nagloshi would be the betting favorite because he's so much more durable. And he can he can run over and use hostages and all that, as Listens to Wind said. But he's like Dracul, he's immortal, and he's like, I'm not going to take a fight I have a 60% chance of winning. Like, there's all these other fights that I've known, which also he'll I'll fight the white court at their home court, which yes, that means the Nagloshi, I shouldn't say he, because the Nagloshi, as Bob said, is not a gender, has no need, doesn't care about, no need to procreate, it's immortal. Although so's Bab, but she actually has a daughter, so that's different, even though she's immortal. This is a good case. He'd be the underdog, though. Like, if the Nagloshi would be the betting favorite, but the Nagloshi can just take fights where no risk of death at all, because Harry could fight in the Nagloshi, even probably current Harry could fight in the Nagloshi as many times as he wanted. Although it would be funny if current Harry just time traveled back to the climax of Turncoat, because he'd just use Demonreach and he would just solo everyone. Yeah.
Time to get sucked down into my prison.
Yeah, Harry on Demonreach at this point is that's a tough nut to crack.
Yeah.
Have you read the Toot short story yet?
I don't think I have.
It's pretty new. It just came out a month or two ago. It's on his website.
Oh, no, the one that's in that other collection. No, I have not. I do.
It's in the other collection. By the way, for everyone who doesn't know this, if you go to Kindle and you look at the sample for that short story collection, the sample contains the entire Toot story.
Oh, nice.
So you can read it for free. You don't have to buy the collection. It exceeded my expectations. I think Jim's a little hit and miss with short stories. Probably because he doesn't like them. But he just likes saying no to people who ask him to do them even less. But the Toot story, it exceeded my expectations. It was really good. It made me even more excited. It exceeded my
expectations because I thought I would hate him, and I love him.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Zaw Lord, I think that's the shirt Colton got. Colton got the For the Zaw Lord shirt. Yeah, I have an innocent bystander, so. Yeah, I mean, Zude and the Warrior are my favorite of the short stories. It'd be up there after that, though. I guess you haven't read Day Off. I'll just tell you the premise for Day Off. Harry has a day off. He's trying to relax, and he keeps being inconvenienced.
I'm shocked.
It's hilarious.
I am shocked.
It starts with him playing D&D and complaining that the magic isn't realistic.
I love it.
Yeah, it's one of the other people, he's playing a big dumb barbarian. And the people throws a fireball 21 feet in front of him and it expands 20 feet. And he's like, that's not how it works.
I like it. Deary asks how big Tube will get by the end. I don't really know how big he is now. Is he supposed to be like, I don't know?
I think he's like 2 feet tall now. He was like 6 or 7. Like he keeps getting taller as he becomes more relevant. So in theory, at some point, he could like actually be one of the she and not a little folk.
He's just a baby. He's just got to grow
up.
Good. Thank you, Colton's mom. Toot Toot is the worst name. I thought I would have to hate him on principle, but then he just grows on you. So you forgive him.
That is cheating, by the way, Chief. It's the epilogue of Battleground now, but you are allowed to pick it as one of your favorite epilogues in fantasy.
I like that you're the person who makes the rules. You're allowed.
I'm in charge now. I'm the captain now.
Not just when you're on my stream, but for all things Dresden. I will tell you.
I am in charge of Dresden on BookTube. When someone else reads Changes 11 times, they can become in charge. They also have to have read all the short stories, including the Goodman Gray short story that you can only get by buying an anthology that's not worth it just for the Goodman Gray short story.
Which you're not bitter about at all.
Well, no, it ended up having a Sun Eater short story in it as well that I didn't care about at the time of buying it. But then when I wanted to read that Sun Eater short story, I was like, oh, wow, I own this already. And
how convenient.
And that made it worth it. The Good People is a microfiction. Does not count. It's also really good, though. There's also an Ivy POV microfiction. That's really good.
I like that.
You should definitely read that. It takes place during Changes. And it's why, I don't know if you noticed, but in Peace Talks, Kincaid was not with Ivy.
I did not notice. I guess I just assumed he was like hidden somewhere that he could see Ivy in order to keep people away from her.
Negative. Yeah, Shake, this is why you weren't the authority on Dresden. Derry, you get to be the arbiter of truth for Realm of the Elderlings. I get to be the arbiter of truth of Dresden. I guess Alan gets to be the arbiter of truth for specifically the City Watch, because he hasn't read all the Discworld books, so I don't think he gets all of Discworld. Jimmy for A Song of Ice and Fire. I don't know. Yeah. But I get Dresden. This is true. That's the Ivy one. It's Goodbye. You should read. It's free. You can just go on his website. You can search Jim Butcher, Goodbye, microfiction. It's like a page. It'll take you 48 seconds to read.
Awesome. I will read.
The Mister one is like a full-on short story. Your First Law? Sure.
Cool. I call First Law.
Yeah, you get it. We all get to be Arbiter of Truth. I guess you're Dark Tower. Do you want Dark Tower? I feel like Philip Chase is Lord of the Rings, so you're Dark Tower, Arbiter of Truth.
I can take that. I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I also haven't read Lord of the Rings since I was a teenager.
I read it for the second time this year, and I loved it the second time.
You didn't like it the first time?
I liked it. I was just like, I gave them all like 4 stars.
7.21.
Yeah, all like 7 point something. They were like lowish 4 stars. And I was like, but I loved it the second time.
Good.
There's a meme in Alex's Discord because I, in the middle of the night, posted, I think I read Lord of the Rings wrong. And said the reason why I didn't enjoy it now. So people have memed on me. I love the Lord of the Rings references in Dresden. I think maybe one of my favorite one-liners is in Changes, where Harry's just like, the man once wrote, "Do not meddle in the affairs of wizards, for they are subtle and quick to anger." Tolkien had that one mostly right. Fuck subtle. Wee.
There's so many good Lord of the Rings references. My favorite like pop culture reference is when he talks about the Ninja Turtles. Like he gives the painters, like the 4 Ninja Turtle painters. I'm like, you would. Like, we can't even talk about high art, Dresden. You got to make this into a Ninja Turtles joke. Thank you.
He's Harry. He gotta. It's his way.
That's what's good about it.
Yeah, I love also like Uriel giving him like having 2 towers like open to the pages. I was looking for those quotes in when I was reading Lord of the Rings. I was looking for the burned hand teaches best. It's in the last chapter of 2 Towers, by the way.
There we go.
No, sorry, it's in the last chapter of book 3, like the Aragorn plot.
Right.
Correct. Oh, also, random foreshadowing thing in Changes. This is the type of thing when you notice when you read it 11 times. The chess game between Murphy and Thomas. Murphy is playing as white. Murphy moves a knight into the middle of a bunch of black pieces, and it's revealed that that's actually checkmate in 4. So even though it looks like that knight's going to die, it's actually a forced win for white. Harry is the Winter Knight, who then moves and goes to the middle of the red court place, who are evil. So in this case, for chess, that works. But actually, it's Martin's plan and leads to their destruction.
Wow. This
Foreshadowing!
Is stuff that you only pick up on read 11.
I think I noticed that on read 10, to be fair.
Excuse me.
So you don't have to read it 11 times, actually. Only 10 to notice things like that. Right. Last thing I noticed, it was just a specific thing that like stood out to me, was during the extremely stressful chapter in Skin Game when Michael's coming out. Uriel shows up. Mm-hmm. And Uriel, like, he does his magic thing. And Harry, from Harry's perspective, he sees like every shameful choice he's done and how easy it would have been to not make those bad choices. Mm-hmm. And like he turns away, and everyone turns away. Like no one can like look at, doesn't avert their eyes. Michael looks away. Like, so presumably they're all seeing the same thing. So even Michael, when he sees some shameful choices, the mm-hmm. only person who does not turn away is Nicodemus.
He's not ashamed of anything.
Yes, Nicodemus saw every shameful choice he has made in 2,000 years, and he stood by all of them. And the question is, would that still be the case after the rest of Skin Game?
Skin Game.
Yeah, with the whole, like, killed his daughter and killed Dedre. So there's a good chance if we see those two interact again, that he will like actually avert his eyes and no one else will notice it, but I'll be like, holy crap. And as will the other people who have read Skin Game 10 times. I've read Skin Game is my second most reread, by the way.
Right.
Yeah, you also have to be a chess nerd, which by the way, it was probably a smothered mate because that's the only thing that makes sense. So
are you a chess nerd, Jake?
I am. I am a chess nerd.
Nice.
Yes. So yeah, these are the type of things you notice when you read the books 10 times. But you guys will notice these specific things now because the first book, like the early books, they're not quite as rich on reread. There definitely are some stuff where like, oh, you actually did have that planned out before. Cool. Mm-hmm. But don't expect like to read Stormfront again and be like, oh, this is actually brilliant. I just couldn't tell because of like I hadn't read everything, but it's brilliant on reread. Sorry. First two are still a little rough.
I think I'll just like people more. Like when I read Full Moon for the first time, I was like, why is Murphy so awful in this book? But now when I look back, I'll be like, oh, Murphy, I wish you were alive to be awful.
Just a little bit annoying in Full Moon, I'm not going to lie. I know Pranav, he was rereading Dresden, and it was the first time he reread it, and he read Stormfront and Full Moon, and he was like, wait, he literally had the cycle of Dresden on reread, where he was like, wait, is this series not actually that good? And then he got into some of the other books, and he's like, oh, no, never mind, it's really good. Exactly. And then he got to some of the ones, he was like, ah! Yeah, so. He Walks Behind does absolutely get mentioned in book 1. Mm-hmm. That is a thing. Yeah. So remember when I said we were basically done now? That was 30 minutes ago.
There we go. See, there's always more to do.
There always is. But unless we have anything to add, unless anyone in chat or Sarah has anything to talk about.
Nope, I'm good. Unless anybody has any last questions.
I haven't read Full Moon since Battleground, and I'm actually not sure what this is referring to.
Expand.
Now, do I need to reread Dresden again?
Oh no, the cycle begins.
Trying to think of why it would be different post Battleground, like what aspect of it would be different. And I actually am not sure. Is it? You have to expand. We're waiting for you.
All right, I'll think of some predictions. I don't predict things that are going to happen very often. Like I just don't think about it. I just wait for it to happen. What kind of predictions do I have? I guess I think that there is romance on the horizon for Harry and Molly. I still think that that is going to happen at some point. I presume that Harry is going to find a way to shed the winter mantle, and I almost think that Mab is going to grant him that. I don't know. I feel like we're working to a point where Mab is going to not want Harry to become like her, which I realize is like a stretch because she has very little of her soul / morality left, but I could see something like that happening. I'm interested. I don't know what's going to become of it, but I think Ebenezer's reaction to finding out that Thomas is also his grandchild is something that I want to see play out. I don't know. Now that Jake has put this like Ebenezer villain arc in my head is all I can think of now, but I do want to see how he's going to react to that. What I think ultimately, like my prediction for like which apocalypse is going to be is the Outsiders. I'm assuming that's why this is all building up, and that is what I think is going to happen. I assume at some point the gate is going to be opened and they're going to come in and we're going to see the fallout from that. But how it's going to resolve, I have not thought that far ahead, but if I had to pick what the apocalypse is going to be, that is probably what I think it's going to be.
Okay, and if you had to rate how much of a train wreck Harry and Lara's marriage will be on a scale of 1 to 10, what score would you give it?
Horrible. It's going to be horrible. I don't know. I can't see it happening. I don't know. I don't believe it. But I've not believed that other things are going to happen, and they do. Jim Butcher does follow through on his hurtful ideas.
So I can't see Mab releasing Harry just because of like, despite how difficult he is, he's so much more effective than like most Winter Knights are effective because they're the Winter Knight. He's more effective than other Winter Knights, like despite not being a Winter Knight. This, like, even if he wasn't a Winter Knight, he would still be really effective. So and also like he's somewhat easy to manipulate because of like how somewhat rigid his morality is, while also just being weird. Like if you have him convinced that it's what has to be done, he will go in like all the way. Also, like she's slowly converting him, I think, by just getting him to make sacrifices for others more and more, the same way she kind of has by being on the outer gate. Yeah. So I've seen this theory, and I disagree with it. And I disagree with it for a very specific reason. And that is that Guard has an intellectus related towards the honored dead and knows how and in what circumstances they die. And I think if she knew that Rudolph didn't actually mean to kill him, she fully knows the circumstances of her death due to that intellectus. So I think she would know.
Right. Do you have any theories about Harry's daughter? Like what kind of role she will play? Because that whole family has had a very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, she's going to have a spin-off series. So she is, yeah. She's going to have a spin-off series with Mouse. That's going to be a thing when like either Cinder Spires is over and Dresden is over. That's going to be like the other thing. He writes, I don't think she's going to play like... I mean, so...
Dresden.
I mean, she'll probably be magic in some way. From narratively. In general, like magic travels down like the female line in Dresdenverse, but in general is not universally. Right. And also, I mean, 2 generations up, it was Harry's mom was obviously magical. Maggie LaFay. Yeah. So I think she'll probably like that. Some people think that's why Harry has like conjuritis, because they're like, oh, you were way too old to have conjuritis. Is that like he got it from his daughter? Because Maggie, it's a thing that is common like as people start to develop magical powers. And yeah, it's gonna be a Maggie and Mouse Wizard School series. And Maggie, it's like she needs Mouse like as a therapy dog because she's been through horrible things, right? But she's also the child of Harry Dresden. So in normal times, like she's like really stressed and needs a therapy dog. But when things are insane, she's completely calm. Yeah. This is true. Which, by the way, was a bet. I don't know if you've heard about this bet. Someone bet Jim Butcher that he couldn't have a plot relevant BDSM scene. And he won it 10 years later. Hello. Yes, don't be here. This is dangerous. Here there be dragons.
Yes.
By the way, Jim Butcher writing to win a bet is canonically the greatest author in epic fantasy. That his power like jumps way up. Anyway, I think I'm actually gonna call it here. I think that's all the questions.
There we go.
But what Rujal said. But it's been a joy to have you on, Sarah.
Thank you.
This was the only other collab I've had with you was for Emperor's Blades, so it's been nice to talk to you about books that are good.
Vastly better than that.
Yeah. Even Stormfront, I'll take over Emperor's Blades every day and twice on Sunday. Yep. But it's been nice to actually talk about good characters and good books.
Yes.
And really clever plotting and attention to detail.
Yes.
And I'm hoping to do more of these Dresden debriefs over time.
Mm-hmm.
And you're the second one on here. Chase wasn't in chat. Chase was the first one. Okay, sorry. We need to see how this gets continued. This is the first half of the explanation of why Full Moon changes because of Battleground. Yeah, but it deserves it, Shake. Okay, I'm sorry. I need to see what Chem says here. We're waiting, Chem. Okay. Okay, seems like a lot of work from all right, I'll reread Full Moon again. I'm going to look for that next time I reread Full Moon. I don't reread Full Moon very often. It's the one I've read the least. Usually I just skip the early ones, but I'll reread it eventually, probably before 12 months, and I will look for that. Thanks for coming, everyone. Thanks for coming, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you, chat, and for being a great guest. Bye, everyone.